Hey, everybody. I just wanted to record a quick demonstration on Excel and how to transform tables that you extracted from the census into graphics. And so what I've got up here is my comparison between Monroe County, Rochester, New York. I'm looking at housing values. So you can see I just exported this using the Excel button from the census website. Here's what spit out. Some things I want you to notice right away about my Excel spreadsheet, this table. You'll notice that all of these numbers are on the left-hand side of these cells, and there's this little green triangle in the corner. If I click on any of these cells with a little green triangle, it's going to pop this warning up. And that's because the warning is coming up because it looks like a number to Excel, but for some reason it's been exported as a text. Probably because the comma is confusing things. So it wasn't sure, maybe it was a word, and so it kept it as a text. What I can do is convert this to a number. Since all of these guys need to be converted to a number, it's easiest for me to just highlight them all at the same time. So all I did was click, drag, so I highlighted all of them. Here, this hazard little icon is up, convert to number, and now all of them have been converted to numbers. If I leave them as texts, then the Excel is not going to know how to graph them because it doesn't know how to graph words. It can only graph numbers. So if you're running into that issue, that is a quick way to fix it. You can click on them one at a time, or like I said, you click on any one with that green triangle, highlight the whole area that you want to fix, and you can fix them all at once, just like I did. All right, so here we've got all of these categories. One thing I'm going to do to make my life easier, I'm going to highlight this row, right click, and I can get rid of this guy because I don't need this row. And I know this is sort of too long for the labels I'm going to want in my graphic. And so I can fix that right here. I'm going to get rid of New York. So I just have Monroe County, and I'm going to get rid of all this. So it's just Monroe County and Rochester because that's perfect. Those are the labels I'm going to want in my graph. Now, number of things going on here. One of the challenges here is that the values comes out as a number of different categories, way more than I could ever show on a graphic. This would just get too confusing. And so one of the things I'm going to want to do is collapse these somehow. So here I'm going to highlight a bunch of rows here. All I'm doing is highlighting a bunch of rows. I'm going to right click. I'm going to insert. So all this stuff goes down a little bit further. And I'm going to look at the data that I've got and decide sort of how I want to lump these categories together. So it looks like if I look at these numbers here, there just aren't that many housing units in either place that are valued less than $50,000. So that's not, certainly I don't need to know less than 10,000, 10 to 15,000. Some of these categories are old. The census has been around since the 1700s. And so there was a time in the 1940 census when these categories were large. And we've been adding categories to them as inflation and housing price appreciation goes on. But so some of these aren't super meaningful categories anymore. So I might just say, you know what, let me just make a category that's less than $100,000. Because, you know, by the time I get all of these guys put together, there really still aren't too many housing units across these two areas. So if I want to lump all these together, I'm going to stick an equation right here. Equal sign is the way to start an equation. I could add these one by one. So this one plus this one, I'm just hitting a plus sign between them. I'm clicking on the cell that I want to add. So I could do it that way, one by one by one by one. And I might do that later on when I really just want to collapse two categories together, maybe three categories. But here I got a lot of categories that I want to smush together. So the easiest way to do this, equal sign, and I'm going to sum these all up. So all I did was type in sum. If you're not sure, you can see that Excel popped it up for me. I'm going to put a parentheses to tell it, here comes. These are the numbers I'm going to want to add up together and sum. And I'm just going to highlight all of those together. You can see this dog is not helping. You can see that right in there, it's telling me what I'm adding together. B, I'm in column B, so B11, here's cell B11, all the way down to B23. And that's exactly what I want. And so I just close the parentheses by typing it. I hit return, and it's added all of those things up. That was for Monroe County. I want to do the same thing for Rochester. one of the things, the error it has here is it's concerned that you can always see what it's worried about. It's concerned that I stopped summing things up and there's still more numbers right below it, which is fine. I know that I did that on purpose. I didn't want to sum up the entire column, but that's just what Excel's worried about right now. If I click on this, it's a little hard to see, but here, and you can see how my mouse changed design. I went from a plus to a white plus to a black plus. If I get to that black plus, it's right on top of this teeny square that's at the bottom right corner of that cell. I can click on it, I just did, and I can drag before I let up, and I'm going to let up with my mouse. And what it did is it copied that same formula. Here now it's column C, so from C11 to C23, and did the same thing for Rochester. So now I've added those up. And again, I can look at the rest of these things. Maybe now I want to do 100 to 150. I'm going to do 150 to 199. Actually, this should be 149. And then this will be 200s, and then call this. So say this is what I want to do. There is no rhyme or reason to what I just did. Maybe this is the way things break up. You might find you do and redo these categories many, many times. But here I'm just going to do similar things again. So here I can just, since it's just two, I want that cell to be added to this one. And now for this one, if I want 150 and 199, this one gets added to this one. The 200s, same thing, if you can see down here, 200, and then to this one. And then here is another one, because we got lots of categories, but there's not too much housing in upstate New York that goes for this much. So here we go. We're going to sum all these guys up from 300 or more. And it disappeared, but here it is up there. So here's the Monroe County breakdown. Same thing. I'm going to highlight all these. I just clicked and dragged, so I highlighted all of them. Here's that teeny tiny square. I switched from the white plus to the black plus. I'm going to grab it, click on it, drag it across. And what it did is it just copied that. It copied all of those formulas. And so now I have for Monroe County and I got for Rochester. So these are the whole numbers. Now I got way more owner-occupied units in Monroe County than I do in Rochester. So to compare the two, it's probably easier to look at percentages. So what I'm going to do, I'm just clicking on the columns. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert some stuff. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I want to have the numbers that I want to graph closer to my labels. It's just going to make my life easier. So here I'm just highlighting these things. I'm going to copy them and you can paste right there. So here I got my column headings. Again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn them into percentages. So similar, I can use my equation at equal sign. It's just this number. Now I'm going to do a little divided by this number right here. One trick for Excel. For these percentages, I'm always going to want to divide by this total number, the 191,432. If for dividing, I were to just, here's the black plus, and I were to drag this down, what it does is it goes down to the next column. It doesn't stay. If you see my denominator there, it's the right numerator. I want this, but I want it divided by this one again. I want that to stay put. One trick in Excel for doing that is to use the dollar sign. This is going to sound totally wonky, and nothing you have to do in your life on a computer requires this kind of typing programming. This is olden days computer stuff. But one of the things you can do is use a dollar sign, and it acts as a lock. So watch what's going to happen. All I'm going to do is type that before the thing I want to lock. I want to keep row 2 as the denominator for all of these percentages going down. Stick with me. This is a little crazy. But if you watch, now I'm going to drag this down. And what happened here, I get to this bottom percentage here, and it did. It kept, I'll show you. We're going to highlight, watch this up here. So this is D3 divided by D2, D4 divided by D2, D5 divided by D2, D6, and D7. And so to make these easier to spot, I'm going to highlight them. Right up here, you can just switch them all to percentages. Might be easier to look at. And again, here's that teeny little box in the corner. I'm going to grab it with my black plus sign, drag this over. Now I've got Monroe County's breakdown and Rochester's breakdown. All right, and so I'm going to highlight these guys. Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. Just move this real quick so I can insert. And I'm going to pick one that is ready for percentages. Okay, so here's what gets spit out. And you'll notice that this looks weird because here I'm supposed to have 2 geographies, and each of those geographies has 5 different categories of values. And this is 5 different categories of values for my 2 different geographies. This looks weird. Here's how you can fix this if this is what happens to you. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go into select data. That is the spot where you can add more information to your graph in your chart. And what I'm going to do here is fix that. I'm going to switch the rows and the columns because here it's got 5 things where I want 2, and it's got 2 things where I want 5. And so I'm just going to switch those. Watch what happens. So just see what happens if I switch it back. It may be that for different projects, you want to present these in different ways. Maybe I want to show where all those housing units that are valued less than $100,000 are, whether they're in Monroe County or whether they're in Rochester. But for this one, I want to do it this way. And so there I have my 5 categories. You can see here too, that we're missing some information. I've got a 1 and a 2. Here's my 1 and 2. Those are going to be labels. I don't want them to be 1 and 2. I want them to be Monroe County, and I want them to be Rochester. See, I did that. I would just edit. And then if you click on this, it's going to let you play around in that box. So if I hit OK, now I've got Monroe County and I've got Rochester. I can make this chart table anything I want. Housing values. I can click on any of these to change the color. It might be helpful here. I'm going to right click. And one of your choices right here is to add your data label. Maybe it's helpful to see that right in there. You can do the same thing now. I want to add the data label here, add the data label here. I'm just right clicking to get this. Add data label, add data label. If I want to do anything with this format, I right clicked again. Click on anywhere, right click. You can get to the format menu, and that's going to pop up over here. And that's going to let you do all sorts of stuff. So if I'm clicking on this one, you can see here's the paint tells me I'm doing something with the formatting. Maybe I want to change the color. Maybe it's too dark. I want to make it lighter. Click on the next one. See how it's going to let me do the same thing. You can play around with this. You can make these. So here, this is if you want a border, that's the border around it. You want to change the color inside of it. If you want to change any, details about the axis, where it starts and where it finishes. If you want to change anything about the labels, if you want to adjust anything about these 2 series, they're too far apart. Let me get them closer together. Maybe I think they're too big. I want to make them narrower. You can play around with all of that there. Hopefully that is helpful. Stop it, rewind, watch it all again, but it's good tricks of the trade, things that might trip you up. If things are texts and not numbers, how to write some equations and collapse some categories if you have too many categories to show up on a graphic, if you want to change any of the formatting in your graphic. But anyway, hopefully at least that hit on some of the things you're likely to run into. If you have questions, please, please, please reach out. It takes a little bit to get used to, but then once you're used to it, you can have an easy time playing around and creating these and recreating these. So I look forward to hearing from everybody and to seeing all of your graphics.